Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
Back on the pod.
We need a better intro. We can't just say that every week like, surprise,
Here we are.
We're doing our jobs.
Can you believe it?
Consistency is our whole thing. Like, we've got to find a better way to drop in. We need a more natural segue.
I don't know what to say. Like, all right, let's just get right to it. What the hell is the Burrito League? And why are people doing this?
Just going straight in, no foreplay. I love it. But yes, I guess spoiler alert, we will be talking about Burrito League, the thing on everyone's lips and everyone's Strava feeds this week's. We're also going to talk about Strava workouts, plyometrics. We're going to answer a question, and we're going to spend the bulk of today's episode talking about how to return to running after time off. Even if you're not currently injured, obviously there's going to be a lot of juicy information in the hot or nots in the listener question.
Honestly, who's not injured coming off of January 1st?
Hopefully most people.
Who doesn't have a little something, lingering? Who's not coming back from something?
Yeah. Well, as always, we do try to really give an in-depth look at the actual physiology underpinning things, like the why, and understanding the why, even if something that doesn't like specifically apply to your life exactly this second, I always think is helpful. Like, that's sort of my beef with, like, I hate when male athletes are like, oh, I don't want to listen to this thing about menopause. It's like, cool, have some curiosity about the human experience, my dude.
So let's just jump in. I don't have any personal anecdotes to add yet. So what the hell is this Burrito League?
I just have to say, I was doing my long run on Sunday, and because you're my one and only life partner, you have, like, I usually silence my phone, but I get notifications if you text me, and it gets read aloud into my earbuds.
Did you see that?
I got a notification during my run. It was just like, from TJ, what the hell is Burrito League? And I just started laughing by myself out in the desert. So Burrito League is this thing put on by Mountain Outpost Era Viper Running Jamil Curry, where if you repeat a predetermined Strava segment in your community more times than anyone else, you win the cash equivalent of a year's supply of burritos and a year's supply of shoes from Mount to Coast, which is presumably 2 pairs of shoes, according to them.
Wow.
I have thoughts.
Okay.
But I want to hear yours first.
What? Well, okay. Couple, qualifying questions here. Who determines the segment?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's different for each community.
Interesting. What is the allure of this?
Well, okay, so this is the part where
I don't get it.
I have like a hard time, like I have a hard time not being all like homo economicus about it, because I calculated. For me, a year's supply of burritos, and the way that this works is like you get to pick the burrito restaurant so that like is available to everyone. So to me, that would be the Chipotle vegetarian burrito with extra guac. It's not the splurgiest burrito on the market, but it's like something. A year's supply of the Chipotle vegetarian burrito with extra guac is equivalent to the cash of $567.
That's it.
I'm not crushing it as a coach and freelance journalist / podcaster, but I am making enough money that derailing my life to run in circles for $567 doesn't move me from an economic standpoint.
How many burritos is a year's supply of burritos?
So if you look at the fine print of this, it's 1 burrito a week for a year.
Okay, that seems fair.
But like, that's not that much. Like,
you're not motivated by that?
I'm not trying to flex, but I can afford. I'm a good enough coach that I can afford burritos when I want them.
What's your favorite segment to repeat? Would it be adult diapers?
No, I don't like repeating adult diapers. Adult diapers is the uphill. I actually do like the uphill on the Catherine Store Loop, one of my favorite winter long run routes. Dirty diapers is the descent.
You like that one?
I am local legend on both, but there's no way I'm repeating them. The eccentric loading would be catastrophic.
It would be a lot.
I am a fan of like local legend, and like I think consistency is beautiful, but consistency taking it to the extremes as we're seeing in this gamified version, and this like it's just perfect for the attention economy. Do this dumb thing the most so you can experience it on Instagram, you can see it on Strava. It's like very sticky in today's world, and like a bunch of like influencers and TikTokers and like famous runners are doing it. So it's sort of like this thing where in the ultra community particularly we've decided it's cool, so therefore it's cool. I'm personally not a huge fan because again, like I work very hard so that I can buy the shoes that I like
Yeah,
when I want to buy them. And
right.
I work very hard so I can buy the food that I like when I want to eat it.
Yeah.
Also, the only two burrito places in our town are Qdoba, which I don't love, and like a $500 gift certificate to Qdoba doesn't exactly like get my engines all revved up, or Dos Gringos, which respectfully, I just think the burritos are just okay
For
there.
vegetarians, it's
Yeah,
not that good.
it's not that good.
So let me jump in with a couple pros that
Mhm.
I had to work really hard to find pros in this
I
because
think that I get it. Like
you get it. You're a
I get it.
person of the people. You
Thank
love
you. I
community.
do.
You love to build stuff
I
and
do.
show up out there and
I love
get your
doing dumb stuff for no money, which is another word for podcasting.
You're right. And I'm the kind of person that's just like, and why would I do this? Why would I sacrifice my own ability to progress over time and not do my training to do this?
Yes.
So here are some pros. I really work hard to try to find other possible truths other than my own so I can better relate to those burrito leaguers out there. Consistency is one of the things that
Love it.
I found here as a possible pro. The community building,
Mhm.
maybe you're out there with your pals
Mhm.
doing a couple half-mile segments back and forth. Uh, and just that, like, okay, this is kind of fun. It's a low stakes motivator. And there's some like a carrot we get to chase
Yeah.
that rewards showing up rather than just like going out there and flashing every segment and trying to get your KOMs to make yourself feel good.
Exactly. But it's still an external motivator. Like the problem with KOMs isn't just that it causes you to run faster than is maybe ideal for what you're trying to achieve in training. It's also because inherently, I think we always want to be aware of what our motivations are. And that's my challenge with this is like there's absolutely a world where people listening and people competing in this, like their heart is in like the perfect place and like this is totally in alignment with their why and their values and God bless, good luck with your burrito leaguing. For me, running is a really sacred space. I work really freaking hard and like not trying to bring a weird energy to the podcast, but like I work really hard all day and running is my playtime. And like fuck right off before you tell me what to do with my playtime unless you're the coach that I guess I pay to do that. Like I find ways to keep it playful. It's a really sacred space for me. I understand that other people have a different relationship to it and there's definitely ways to make it fun and like to plug into community, but my little like piece of advice for folks is with Burrito League and like all of these like with run streaks, all of these external things, virtual challenges, running anything, any running thing. Be curious about why you're interested in that. And like doing it for attention, I guess, is valid. If that's one of your values, it's not for mine. Like I am a very interior person, despite the fact that I spend 90% of my life speaking into a microphone. And I protect that like with my life. And
Right.
so again, people are allowed to do with their lives and their time and metabolism what they want. I'll be out here running exactly wherever the heck I want and treating myself to a burrito also whenever the heck I want. But I am curious, this is one where like I'm open to having my mind changed.
Okay.
So
All right.
if you have a different perspective, I want to challenge you to comment on this video or podcast and tell me why we're wrong. I'm very curious to know. I think there are alternative perspectives and I'm sure that there are some burrito leaguers tuning in. So tell me why I'm wrong. I'm curious.
Yeah. So maybe a question to explore here is, does repeating these segments keep things playful? Does it keep you more interested in running? Does it help serve the outcomes that you want to, create for yourself in your athletic life? Or does it end up turning into this like thing where you're just endlessly counting and tallying things for the sake of it? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about $500 or $600 worth of burritos here. And I'm sure there's people out there who would love that, and that would be really amazing for them. But you know, I think market research suggests that people who listen to this podcast probably wouldn't be necessarily stirred by that exact outcome.
Yeah.
However, like there are probably things in here that are less tangible than getting
Well, that's what
free
I mean,
burritos.
that's why I'm like made the Homo economicus joke, is because the rationale of like pure like economic logic breaks down completely when you look at the numbers behind this. Like,
Right.
if you took the time that would be required in the majority of communities to earn the prize, if you worked literally any other minimum wage job, like I know that working a minimum wage job is way less fun than running, and that's a valid point, but like if you did almost anything else with your time, you could earn that $500 way quicker. So it's absolutely not an economic argument.
Got it. So I'm gonna go not hot for Burrito League.
Yes.
That's where I'm at.
I'm saying not hot for me. Again, if you can do it in a way that feels in alignment with your values, awesome. I would also say like don't sacrifice your training on the altar of free burritos. Really,
Yeah.
guys?
All right. Strava instant workouts.
Have you seen these on in
Not-
your app?
I have not.
Oh, they're these like AI workouts where I guess the AI looks at like honestly, I don't know, and they don't tell you.
Awesome.
And it tells you what to do on any given. It's sort of like, the Garmin instant workout. Like if you don't have it connected to your training piece, it'll be like rest or like recovery day or tempo. Like it always has kind of like dumb, to my assessment, suggestions.
Can you walk me and the rest of the audience who does not scroll through every little new advertisement and trick and tool that Strava has to offer? Can you walk us through what the pros of this might be?
Yeah. So like with it's better than doing nothing in a lot of cases, I'm quite sure.
Yeah.
And there is some amount of logic. Can we test it and vet it? No, which is why I'm like definitely not going to give it an unequivocal green light or thumbs up. But it does take some information. Again, we don't know exactly what, feeds it through some algorithm. Again, we don't know what, which should always make you skeptical, and then gives you a result. In my experience, again, I pay a coach who I think is a very good coach. Never once has those things lined up, which I think is an interesting data point that not even on accident has Strava ever been like, yes, rest today.
Right.
Or like, yes, long run.
Right.
So
do that.
they've never been on the same page.
Do that 4x10 threshold workout.
That's a piece of information that you can do whatever you want with it. So I any amount of structure is going to be better than no structure. Any amount of intention is going to be better than no intention. It can help remove decision fatigue, which is super real for folks, especially, busy athletes who just want to lace up and go and do slightly more than like nothing. Having a plan is better than wandering aimlessly. And I think that it can sort of act as like training wheels or a way of exposing runners to workout structures that they haven't otherwise tried or get them out of a funk.
So here's where my brain immediately went with this.
Take me there.
Zero context about where you are in your actual training cycle. Zero context around
it doesn't know what your goals are.
Right. What your goals are, your fatigue levels, what you actually need to succeed or get better. No periodization. Does it even include progressive overload? Is it just random? Way too many questions and not enough answers. And also, I think from a physiological standpoint, it's important to note that your body needs specific stresses to produce meaningful adaptations. So randomizing your training workouts, especially if you've been doing this for more than maybe a year or two, isn't going to get you anywhere.
Yeah. If you're brand new at running, doing some random stuff will get you likely get you injured as well, but also likely you'll see some amount of progress. Hard to say exactly how much and why, because random. So my question is always, is something better than nothing actually true for structured work, or does that only apply to easy volume? And I would say, like, if you're going to commit to structure, commit to doing it right.
Yeah.
Seriously. And that doesn't mean you have to hire an $800 like a month coach. Like, you don't need a personal trainer.
Who's charging that?
There are ways of introducing structure that make more sense than AI. And I think that increasingly what we're seeing in the research and in conversations around AI and these sort of like algorithmically driven like training things Human brains are so sophisticated, and we keep trying to invent something that's smarter than the human brain in this specific instance, and we just can't. Your human brain knows when you're tired. It knows when you're not feeling motivation. It knows if you ate a bad burrito for lunch in a way that Strava won't. And your brain is always taking those things into account. And your human coach can see through, like, I'm always looking for the words my athletes are using. Like, this is negative. This person is coming across in a really different tone than they usually do, or they're writing less or they're writing more. And you can derive a lot of information that goes far beyond the data. And then you bake that into something that is a lot more nuanced than just like numbers in, numbers out. And so I would say this is slightly better than nothing, but if you're going to do something, maybe do it a little more right, you know?
I think if you're going to do anything, you might as well do it the right way.
Yeah.
So I'm going not hot.
Cool. Great.
Thanks for creating more noise, Strava.
I know. They are kind of funny. Like, I always enjoy the Strava, like the athlete intelligence thing, which, like, because I always like to make jokes in my Strava titles, always takes those wildly out of context. It'll be like, great run with Jacob Elordi. And I'm like, I fucking wish, dude. Like, absolutely not. It's not what's happening here.
All right. Last hot or not, and then we're going to move on to our listener question. Plyometrics for distance running. Let me step in with a couple pros, and then you hit us with the cons here.
Yeah.
So why might we want to do this? Builds reactive strength and power, which can improve running economy. It can also train your muscles and tendons to store and release elastic energy more efficiently. You can think of your Achilles as kind of like a spring. Ooh, if we train that, maybe I'll be a little faster off the blocks. I think there's also a neuromuscular coordination and ground contact time part of this too, to think about. These plyometrics are very quick, they're very powerful, and that can really lend to a quicker and more powerful stride. Less time on the ground could reduce some impact forces and potential injury. And there's some solid research here that also shows that low-dose plyos improve our running economy in trained runners. So can help kind of like get us sharp before a race. And so there's some pros to this.
Also, specifically for female athletes and peri and postmenopausal female athletes, there's a lot of bone health benefits too to loading. And we'll talk about this, you do have to go about it the right way, and just like going from zero to doing ginormous box jumps is not going to spark joy for your skeleton. So there are downsides, especially if you don't do this correct. It's high force, it's high speed, and there can be a high injury risk if your tissues aren't ready or if your form isn't good. So this is something I don't just like casually recommend to, Joe Driveway, who's like never done strength training before. You need to build a foundation. Tendons also adapt slower than muscles. We're talking months, not weeks. So jumping into box jumps or depth jumps without a strength foundation is just asking for a ton of trouble for your system. It's also very easy to overdo volume when it comes to plyos. They create a lot of eccentric load, which means more muscle damage and longer recovery. So it is a slightly different, it's different than other types of strength training. And I think, to touch on the physiology, plyos work with the stretch shortening cycle. Your muscle lengthens under load, which is eccentric, then immediately contracts, concentric. And that rapid switch is what builds the power. That's what makes the plyos work. And then it's but it's also what makes them so demanding. You need a really solid base of strength to absorb those forces safely. So starting with things like pogo hops before you go whole hog and start doing these crazy, huge, like CrossFit moves.
Yeah. So maybe a question to explore here. Should plyos be earned with foundational strength work first? And what does a minimum effective dose of plyometrics actually look like for distance runners who aren't trying to become sprinters?
Yeah. So on the whole, I would say they are, I'm a huge fan of strength training. I think plyos this isn't like my opinion. Research says they can be beneficial helpful if you do them right, if you do them at the right times, and if you recover correctly. And those are some big ifs.
Yeah. All right. So listener question. You want to read this one to us? I heard you're familiar with this one.
I did this run at 5 to 6 RPE, which I feel like I've been nailing pretty consistently. But here's the thing. I could push a little harder while definitely staying in the endurance zone. Is there an advantage to running faster when I'm feeling good if it's still in the correct effort? Or am I just accumulating more fatigue for no extra benefit?
So you want to confess now? I'm just going to
Yeah.
confess
Yes.
for you. I know that this is a question that you actually asked your coach.
Yeah, I literally copied and pasted that from my training log. So the listener is me. Hi, longtime listener, first time caller.
You are good at listening to
Thank you.
yourself speak.
It's my job. It's what I do.
But I think it's a great question for athletes to consider. So I appreciate you adding it to this week's outline. And
Thank
it's
you.
fresh. So it's something you're thinking about. So hopefully you can bring a little enthusiasm to the answer here. I'm going to step in and pretend I'm your coach, which
Thank
would
you.
be
Perfect.
very unethical and very unhealthy.
No, you would not want to coach me.
Please don't coach your partners/spouses. So first, let's validate this experience. I think that feeling like you can go faster is a good thing to notice.
Thank you.
And noticing that day to day means you're likely progressing and you've got a little more space to give. Your aerobic system is growing. And awareness is everything in this process. So the fact that hey, you know what? Like you're defaulting to slowing down and kind of like and you're asking these questions about whether, you should go faster or not, I think is a sign of maturity to me.
Why, thank
So
you.
instead of just like reacting to that feeling and going all in and then like trying to figure out if it's helpful or not later, good approach. But I do think also like adaptations are what we're after here.
Yes.
And so if we're not doing the right thing to produce the right kind of response, then we need to be really careful. So I think we need to first break down what happens when we're running at RPE 5-6 or we're doing an easy pace, endurance pace run to understand what we're trying to get from these.
And zooming out
sessions.
slightly, when you're in a specific physiological zone, the adaptations you're stimulating are going to be the same, whether you're at the faster or slower end of the zone. But the fatigue implications are going to be different. So that's kind of what I wanted to unpack with my coach. So looking at what's happening at that RPE 5-6 or endurance pace, that's the pace you're doing your long runs at, like non-recovery run days. So right here, one of the things we're working on is mitochondrial biogenesis. So you're stimulating the creation of new mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of the muscle cells. And that happens through a signaling cascade.
That's how they
triggered.
Talk.
That's how they talk. Hi, mitochondria.
I'm so powerful.
I'm so powerful. You're stimulating me.
Oh, wow.
This happens through a signaling cascade. But that signal is essentially binary, whether you're in the zone stimulating this adaptation or you're not. So being at a 645 mile versus a 715 mile at the same RPE doesn't create more mitochondria.
And I think that right then and there is one of the most important things athletes who are contemplating this for themselves can think about. So if we do say yes to speeding up, we need to know exactly for what purpose we would be wanting to speed up. Couple other things here. We've talked about this in other podcasts. So I don't think we need to dive into all the science, but fat oxidation efficiency improves, aerobic enzyme activity improves, and we have a process called angiogenesis where our capillaries become more dense. So those are the key adaptations when we're running easy or RPE 5-6.
And that is, again, going to be agnostic. But here is the fatigue cost is where things get sticky and where I think this sort of discrepancy matters. So the catch is that even if the adaptations are similar, the fatigue implications are going to be different because the musculoskeletal stress of running faster, even just slightly faster, increases ground reaction forces. It increases loading rates on your bones, tendons, muscles. So even if you're at the same RPE, faster running in that same zone does create more mechanical stress. So if you were someone training for their first marathon or 50K, we want those tissues resilient, not chronically beat up. So you're not getting an extra benefit by pushing it. You're not building more fitness by speeding things up. you might be undermining your ability to recover. You might not. Like, there might be a world where you're absolutely meeting those recovery needs, but it's sort of like you're starting to gamble with those adaptations that you came there for in the first place.
There's also glycogen depletion that happens here. So faster running, even at the same perceived effort, burns slightly more carbohydrates relative to fat. And over a long run, this can mean deeper glycogen depletion and longer recovery times. We also have a neural fatigue that happens here where faster turnover requires more neuromuscular coordination. It's subtle, but it does really add up over repeated bouts.
So here is where I want to bring us back to our minimum effective dose principle and where our like where I want to apply our coaching philosophy. So looking at this question, my question, hi,
Hello.
hi, it me, I'm the problem.
You are.
If the adaptation is the same at both the faster and slower end of the zone, but the fatigue cost is higher at the faster end, then the smart play is usually to stay towards the middle or slower end. You're getting the same physiological benefit while staying fresher for your key workouts and accumulating less energy risk. So save the good day energy for when you actually need it, like during those interval sessions, a workout where the intensity does matter, and make sure that your pacing is being driven by, like, I know what adaptations I'm going for, and remembering that the body obeys physiology and not the ego. Because I like to run fast.
Love it. So I think the bottom line here is to think about, what are you trying to get out of your training? Do those faster sessions align more with the race specifics, the specific demands of your race? Are you going to be running your race? Is it a marathon or is it 100K? Some of those faster days might be more helpful if you're running a marathon, but they're not going to be that helpful if you're running a 100K or a 100-mile race. So taking some of that extra risk in certain kind of context can be helpful, especially if you're feeling fresh, if you're feeling good, there's no red lights popping off. But usually it's going to be, hey, stick to the middle of that range, go slower, especially if there's any question about health or how you feel. Go slower, lower the impact forces to your body, and, keep training consistently over time as a result.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
there it is.
There it is, guys. Don't have to go faster.
So I want to talk a little bit about returning to running after time off. So, for athletes that have been sidelined by injury, illness, consumed by life, stuff happens, new baby, job change, moving, caregiving, all of the things, or you needed a mental reset, the comeback is one of the most critical and often, to my assessment, most mismanaged phases of training.
Right.
So today we want to give athletes the science and strategy behind returning to run smarter, not just faster, and like the why behind how we do things.
So I'm gonna start us off here by walking us through a little bit by what actually happens to your body during time off. Like, what does detraining actually look like? What kind of physiological processes are impacted here? And I do want to preface this with, athletes who are listening to this, be curious about this. So often as coaches, we see athletes really take a catastrophic perspective to having to take time off. But, we've discussed this a little bit in previous podcasts. It does take quite a while to detrain. So here's what's going on. First 1 to 2 weeks, plasma volume decreases. One of the first changes is a reduction in blood plasma volume. That's the liquid portion of your blood. This can drop 5 to 12% within the first week. And why does that matter? Less plasma means less blood returning to your heart with each beat, which means your heart has to beat faster to deliver the same amount of oxygen. And this is why your heart rate feels elevated even at easy paces when you return to running. It's not loss of fitness. It's just, kind of a side effect of taking time off, and it will shift back and normalize with training.
Because it's one of the first things to go away. It's also one of the first things to come back.
Love
It
that.
does really impact how athletes feel, which is why people always feel like, oh my God, I'm so out of shape after like 3 days off or really not that long off. And this is a lot of times what they're feeling, and it's really quickly reversible. Another thing that we see pretty early on is the cardiac output efficiency is going to drop. And this is partially related to that blood plasma volume you mentioned. Your stroke volume or how much blood is pumped per beat goes down. So your heart hasn't gotten weaker, it just has less blood to work with. And again, this is something that reverses really quickly with training.
Good news here, guys. Mitochondria and capillaries, that stuff we talked about in the listener question, aka the Zoe Rome question.
Thanks. We're not going to let that go. Here's me performing humility, performing curiosity, and you're going to make it a whole thing.
It has to be. Why not? It's fun to be dramatic.
Here I
Easy
am
questions.
helping people. That's not an that's a genuinely good ass question. And I know that because I asked it. And this is something I always talk to my athletes about. It's one of our core value. Like when I'm onboarding people, I give them a whole spiel of NDQ, no dumb questions.
No dumb questions.
It is always better to ask a dumb question than to just remain a dumb person.
I was wondering when you were going to steer it back to the intellectual properties of the individual who's refusing to ask the question.
That's only dumb people don't ask dumb questions.
It's good to ask questions.
There are no dumb questions. If you're wondering something, it's a good question. Likewise, one of my weird journalistic pet peeves is whenever I ask a question and someone's like, "Oh, good question. Yeah, dumbass. I asked it. I wrote it down. I came here to do my job. Of course the question's good."
You're a professional question asker.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
So,
Curiosity is a core value.
I expect a little bit more from you next week.
To ask a better training question.
All right. So good news, guys. We know because of the discussion about Zoe's training, mitochondria and our capillaries remain stable within those first 1 to 2 weeks. So our structural adaptations we built are not going to disappear right off the bat. And I think that's really helpful for athletes to think about because those are also the ones that take a long, long time to build up.
Yeah.
All right, take us through the 2 to 4 week time period.
So we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but in 2 to 4 weeks off, you are going to start to see VO2 max decline. Looking at research, VO2 max can drop 4 to 14% after 4 weeks of detraining, but context, as always, really matters here because highly trained athletes will lose fitness faster just because they have more to lose, while recreational runners may see smaller drops. So again, just a percentage of what your baseline already was. You're going to see lactate threshold shifts, and your ability to clear lactate at those higher intensities starts to decline 2 or so weeks in. Efforts that once felt comfortably hard are going to start to feel harder a lot sooner. And your muscles' ability to store glycogen is going to go down. Your muscles just become less efficient at storing carbohydrates as fuel. And again, this is also reversible within a few weeks of training.
All right, so 4+ weeks off. Now we're starting to get into an area that nobody likes to be in. Mitochondrial density decreases. We do see changes to those actual structural adaptations. Capillary density decreases as well, and our muscle fiber starts to change. So some slow twitch fibers, they may shift towards fast twitch characterizations. And also, you're just not going to feel that snappy. We have, kind of a neuromuscular losses here as well. And the connective tissue adaptation reverses. So tendons, ligaments, and bones that are adapted to running loads begin to kind of de-adapt. And this is really crucial because it influences how we actually build back or our framework for returning to running, because everything else, is going to start to increase as you increase your activity load. But the rate at which we can ramp up our activity is really dependent on how much time we've taken off because of this one critical aspect. If our musculoskeletal system isn't prepared to take on the demands of the training, we're going to get hurt again on the way back to our normal training.
Which is why we'll see athletes get stuck in these training cycles of they aerobically, cardio-wise can push faster, but every time they do that, their bones and tendons just aren't ready. So I think one framework I want to give listeners for returning to running is thinking of getting back into running as a reverse taper. Just as you wouldn't go from peak training to race day overnight, you wouldn't go from full rest to full training overnight. So some general rules and principles by time off are as follows. If we're looking at 1 to 2 weeks off, I think you can return to 75 to 80% of previous volume pretty much immediately, rebuild to full volume over 1 to 2 weeks, reintroducing intensity after 3 to 5 easy days of running. With a big like blanket caveat here is like, we're coaches, we believe in the value of having an individual to assess your situation. And
Yes,
this is
please.
not something I would advise people. I think it's going to be extremely dependent on what took you out of training in the first place and what your baseline was.
Right. And what some of your, potential strengths and weaknesses are. Like if you're an athlete who kind of gets hurt a lot, you might not want to start at
Right, like
75
if
to
you're someone
80%.
who has a propensity for bone injury, or like if you're someone who struggled with like the long tail of red S, and those things can have like a really long sort of like rain shadow, athletes that have been diagnosed with red S or have had like a history of eating disorders are going to have a different build or return to running as people who don't have that same history.
So if you've taken 2 to 4 weeks off, consider starting at 50 to 60% of previous volume and rebuild over 3 to 4 weeks. Keep the first week entirely at RPE 4 to 5. That means, really, really, really leaning into those recovery runs and then reintroduce intensity in week 2 to 3. We're really taking our time to build back, especially if we've now had 4 weeks off. Now, what about if we're in that 4+ week
This is
area?
really where I don't want to give like a blanket prescription, but
Yeah.
thinking of a walk run return is going to be important for gradually loading those bones and tendons, starting with alternate days of doing that walk run and then increasing the ratio of run to walk, and then sort of building to going from non-consecutive days to consecutive days of running. I like to experiment with 2 consecutive days, then building to those 3 consecutive days of running. But if you have been not running for that amount of time, I think making sure that you're working with, I would call it your care team, ideally like a
Yeah.
PT, ideally a coach. This is one of those things you don't want to like eyeball and try to like vibe out for yourself.
Yeah. I would say, last point on this, and then we'll get into some specific scenarios that might be helpful to athletes to hear about. But like your musculoskeletal system is going to lag behind your cardiovascular system. We know that. It's the slowest system to form adaptations in the training process. So your heart and lungs, guys, they're going to come back fast, but we have to be really mindful of our tendons, ligaments, our bones, our muscles. That mismatch is really the point at where like training injuries happen.
Yeah.
And the cardiovascular system is always going to say, let's go.
Yeah.
Like that'll come back quick. But unfortunately, the other stuff is not going to come back as fast. So you have to be really, really patient. And yeah, sometimes that feels frustrating. Sometimes you might see, and as I know, sometimes with my athletes, when I'm doing a plan that helps them come back from injury, like a return to run, they're seeing like, wow, this is a slow progression. And it's like, well, the purpose behind that slow progression is getting you back to where you were and you being healthy when you arrive there.
And it's always better to be 10% over cautious than 10% overzealous.
Right.
Because, like, I would rather finish a week being like, oh, yeah, I could have done more than like, oh, goddamn, I went overboard on
Well,
this
it's
one.
a lot easier to add more on if things are feeling
Correct.
good rather than to take things off when we notice that
when it's too late and you're injured
shit,
again.
we overdid it, take stuff away. It's like, you're already hurt. You
Yeah.
can't take stuff away now.
Yeah, it's Real Housewives of Salt Lake time for you, bud.
Just plant yourself in front of the TV.
Yeah, get that Bravo subscription going and embrace the walk run.
Does Bravo have a streaming?
Yeah, they have their own
wow.
streaming service.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, they have an app.
You have it?
I mean, I watch Real Housewives on my treadmill runs.
Oh, what?
Yes.
Oh, this is news to me, guys.
Yeah. It's very cheap.
It's very cheap.
Yeah, but it's like a whole ecosystem of like all the Bravo stuff.
Okay, I don't want to go down that.
Too much.
It's too much. It's TMI, honestly. All right, let's get into some returning to training specific scenarios here. All right, after injury, walk us through what this might look like.
So again, like I mentioned, you want to work with your PT or sports medicine provider and your coach. I always like to be looped in with my athletes, PTs, and docs to determine tissue readiness. These people who can put hands on you can assess whether the injured structure has healed enough to tolerate running loads. And I think that is really essential for peace of mind in the instance of injury. And again, those walk-run progressions are your friend. But you also really want to make sure that you've addressed the root cause. Like if you're coming back from a stress fracture, make sure you've addressed bone density, nutrition, and training load errors. If you're returning from IT band syndrome, make sure your hip strength and mobility work is in place. The injury is feedback. Listen to it. Like specifically learn what the lesson was. If there's a lesson to be learned of like, I wasn't strength training or my pelvis was out of alignment for, I mean, both of us have had weird pelvic
That
things.
damn pelvis.
My pelvis keeps wiggling all over the place. It's tilting, it's going back and forward and
Stay down.
stay in one spot, pelvis. But again, like if you have had like recurrent soft tissue injuries or recurrent bone injuries, there is a lesson to be learned there. And 99 times out of 100, it comes down to nutrition, recovery, and managing training load appropriately.
Let me talk just for a couple minutes here about coming back after illness.
Mm-hmm.
I like this term, the neck check.
I call it the neck check.
That's funny. So it's a bit outdated, but it's still useful, right? It helps us to understand, are the symptoms above or below the neck? Symptoms above the neck, okay. A mild cold, sniffles, and it's probably okay to do some light activity. But symptoms below the neck, chest congestion, body aches, fever, trouble breathing. All right, well, you know what? We need full rest to resolve that. Likely training through that is just going to prolong the illness.
Yeah, like we talked about on a previous episode, illnesses, your body's in a catabolic state. It cannot receive training volume.
Cough?
Like it can't adapt.
Cough above or below the neck?
If it's a light cough, like if it's like a, like the difference between a light cold and like the cough is waking you up all throughout the night, your chest hurts, there's like a lot of congestion. I mean, I don't think I can describe it without sounding like an actual moron, but like also if you have to ask, is my cough too bad to run? Your cough is too freaking bad to run.
Take a rest day, my friend.
If you have to ask, the answer is no. Rest.
If you have to ask if I should run harder, the answer is no.
And, I think this is a lesson that was learned after COVID because those post-viral symptoms are real. COVID-19 taught a lot of us very clearly, and it applies to other illnesses too, that if you've had a significant, particularly viral illness, your body might need more time than you think. So things like persistent fatigue, elevated resting heart rate, or exercise intolerance, like feeling more fatigued than you would normalize feel, appetite not feeling well, sleep being disrupted, those are signs you are not ready to return to running. Again, like just because you can physically go out and do the training, great, but your body can't adapt to that stimulus. So why are you doing it?
Exactly. Well, I'm doing it because I don't feel sufficient in who I am. Sorry, oh gosh.
It's so tough because like I've seen athletes get long COVID and it sucks.
It's horrible,
Like,
but
really
also
sucks.
pushing through your training because you're struggling to take time off is also horrible.
So it's always better to take that one extra day. If you're on the fence, take that day. Like that day, that couple of days might earn you weeks, months, or years of training down the road.
A couple things to consider. Monitor your resting heart rate and HRV. If they are elevated or in terms of HRV, if it's below your baseline, heart rate above, know that your body is still fighting. Often those things may start to normalize even before you feel normal and your energy returns. And that's because there's a serious energy cost to fighting off some kind of a virus or, some kind of illness, whatever you've got.
Even if you're just on the couch watching Bravo, your body is very hard at work and needs those energy resources. So like, A, don't rob your body of the things it needs.
Yeah.
And B, your body's not ready to come through you on the training. So don't fight yourself on that one.
Return conservatively. And, you can use some of the same principles and framework that we talked about previously to guide yourself back. But what about after a planned break, like a mental reset, end of season, life, busy season? I had to take 2 weeks off because, I was changing jobs or moving across the country.
I feel like this is often the scenario that a lot of athletes come to coaching in is they're like, I just DNF'd my race or I had a baby or my wife, like all these things. And they're like, and ergo, I've run 7 miles in the past 3 weeks. And that's actually that's a best case scenario because you're not returning from damage. You're returning in a lot of cases refreshed. But again, context matters and the same principles apply, tissue tolerance has declined even if your motivation is high. So the stoke will be there, but your bones don't care how stoked you are, unfortunately. It's offensive to me too. So use that break as genuine rest. Returning with the same patterns that led to burnout will lead to burnout again. You know, it's like the definition of insanity is like doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I realize that the poignant eye
Yes.
contact doesn't play on a podcast as well as it does for our YouTube
She's looking
watchers.
directly into the
I was
camera.
making searing, emphatic eye contact. So I think it's good. Like, write down, note, tell your coach, tell yourself, put it on a sticky note, tattoo it on the back of your hand. What specifically are you going to do different this cycle?
Yes.
And work on rebuilding your why. Why are you running? What do you want from this training block? And coming back with intention prevents the autopilot that so often can lead to overtraining.
Let's do a quick red light, green light to help athletes kind of identify areas where it might be safe to progress and where then maybe they want to pump the brakes a little
Yeah.
bit.
So, green light, you're completing runs feeling like you could do more. That's good. Leave something in the tank. Like, quit while you're ahead. That is good. That is what we want.
No lingering muscle soreness beyond 24 to 48 hours is a great sign that you can keep progressing. Sleep quality remains normal.
Your resting heart rate is at or near your baseline, and you're genuinely excited to run. Remember, motivation is a form of physiological readiness.
So some red lights here. Sharp localized pain. This is going to be different from general muscle fatigue and soreness as you get back into the training. Also pain that worsens during a run or doesn't resolve after.
Or if the presentation, I would say, changes meaningfully. Like if it was dull and then it got sharp, or it was disparate and then it got achy. Like if there's stuff happening during and after the run, that's not ideal. Sometimes with tendon stuff, like with plantar stuff and Achilles stuff, it's normal to have some soreness after the run, especially as you're building back tolerance. We don't want to avoid all discomfort and that for those particular injuries. So again, this is really where working with the PT and having a care team will help you understand what levels of discomfort are normal and positive and what means you need to pump the brakes.
Yeah, just also a couple last things. Pay attention to that heart rate, elevated resting heart rate or a low HRV, stuff that's not normalizing, coming back to baseline. Good sign to stop. Take some extra rest days. Sleep disturbances, increased illness frequency. Again, good signs there to pump the brakes. Take some extra time off. And then from a psychological perspective, just dreading being out there and feeling a lot of friction. Okay, maybe I'm coming back too fast. Maybe I need more time for mental recovery. Really consider the mental sides of this as well.
Yeah. I also think respecting the mental component of building back is important. And kind of like I hinted at earlier, a lot of times your ego can be the enemy. And the hardest part of comebacks for many athletes isn't physical. It's about accepting where you are versus where you were and like comparing yourself to a past version of yourself, which is like a really flawed comparison point because one of those things doesn't exist anymore.
That's so
One of
me.
those things does and one of them doesn't. And that it's always going to be tempting because old you felt real and was real at a different time, but is no longer real and isn't a good comparison point.
Yeah.
And your Strava doesn't care about your reasons for your time off, but your body does. So running slower than quote unquote your old self isn't failure. It's appropriate and strategic training for your current fitness. Trust that process.
Yeah, it's a part of the process. And I think one of the things that can help us coming back is having a good story about our comeback that supports the outcomes that we want to
Mhm.
have. So,
Write your hero's journey.
yeah, write your hero's journey instead of like these typical thoughts that I see a lot from athletes. There's like, I'm out of shape. I'm not going to be, where I was before. Shift those thoughts, restructure them in a way that creates a story that actually supports where you want to go. I'm building a new foundation. I used to be able to do this and soon I will be able to again. I used to be able to do this and now I'm investing in my future performance.
Mhm.
Like shift those thoughts to support what you want to create rather than drive yourself into a comparison cycle that makes it very hard to motivate to go out and do what sometimes is hard work and very unsexy to come back from an injury or a long illness.
Being a douche to yourself will not make you faster.
It
A,
won't.
it's kind of a bad look. It's kind of lame. You have better things to do. And also, B, looking at the research, that sort of negative motivation, even though it feels like, for those of us who had like strict coaches, strict parent, like the sort of
Those
tough
of us who have
love.
like David Goggins, that's your
Yes.
inner voice.
Yeah. If your inner voice is David Goggins, say thank you for your service, but I've looked at the science and you are not needed here.
I keep saying that. I think it's not working.
And I think it's so like my go-to mantra whenever I'm in one of those moments is like, I'm one day closer to my next best day.
I love that.
Don't know when it is, but I'm closer to it than I was previously. And that helps me retain a sense of inertia without putting too much pressure on it, and helps me acknowledge like, I'm not going to try to make you feel a different way about where you are right now. Like, we work hard to get fit, so it's okay to have feelings about not being as fit as you want to be. You also do have to chill out and realize it's part of the process and like get with it. And if you're constantly fighting it, that I think merits a much larger discussion, but peaks necessitate valleys.
I feel like, yes, they do. And one of the things I have seen so often overlooked in like sports psychology is the acceptance piece of this. Great therapists understand this concept and this tool really well. Accept where you're at. Don't be in conflict with your current situation. I'm injured and this sucks. Or I'm coming back from injury. I had a stress fracture and it's going to take me, it took me out for 3 months and it's going to take me 3 months to even get close to where I was. Accept that. Don't fight against that. The sooner you accept where you are, the sooner you can get on with the work that you have to do that's going to get you back to where you want to be. The thing that helps me so much with this is acknowledging that it's important to keep the door open to joy, even when you don't feel the joy.
Yeah.
Even when it doesn't feel sexy or fun or like cute on Strava and people are going to give you a kudos. Like, time off is tough, especially when it's forced, but there is an opportunity in it.
I call it living in the montage because you're in the part of Rocky where he's just running around Philadelphia to da-da-da.
Right. And he's sweating, he's working
and he's wearing
real
all
hard.
cotton.
It's got a lot of
But
cotton.
like,
very
it's
cold.
It's 4 minutes. Actually, I was listening to one of my favorite songs by the Mountain Goats is called Training Montage. It's about the idea that like in a movie, the training montage only takes up 4 minutes, but it's actually, that's most of what it is. That's most of what life is the training montage. And the more comfortable you get to living in the montage, the better it will be. So I say put on a playlist that slaps and get with it.
Become one with the montage.
Become one with the montage.
Constantly in the gap between where I was and where I want to be. So let me wrap it up a little bit with some key takeaways here. Detraining is reversible, and also you don't detrain as slow as you think. So stop making it a catastrophe.
Yeah.
It's not one. You will come back. Connective tissue also is the biggest limiting factor. So, I think fitness, neuromuscular stuff sometimes speaks really loud and covers up the musculoskeletal part of this, but that's the one we need to pay attention to the most because everything else comes back way quicker than we think it does.
You have to progress on the timeline of the slowest part of your system.
Yes.
And the more at peace you become with that, the more enjoyable training will become.
I think a great way to remember how to do this is to think about RPE as your North Star and make sure those paces feel frustratingly slow. When you're coming back, 4, max 5 out of 10 RPE.
A lot
Keep
of recovery time.
So slow, like you're running with your best friend who just started running for the first time.
I tell people to listen to the song Pony by Genuine and channel that sort of like sexy slowness on their recovery days.
Wow, that's a sexy slowness.
Bow. Bow.
Wow, that's a clap to that.
Bow.
Hit us with the call to action to wrap this up.
I would just say for athletes listening, if you're in a comeback right now or about to start one, we would genuinely love to hear from you. So drop us a message on Instagram, send us a voice memo with your comeback story, microcosm.coaching@gmail.com. comment on this video, comment on this podcast, leave us a review, tell us why we're wrong about Burrito League. And if this was helpful to you at all, share it with a running buddy. And if it wasn't, congratulations on listening to 53 minutes of it. That's really exciting for you. And tell us why. And, share it with anyone else who might be navigating this, and let us know if there are topics you want us to cover in future episodes. But until then, train smart, recover like the boss athlete that you are, and remember that the best training is the training that you can actually sustain.
Let's go. We'll see you next week.